Okay,
I'm gonna talk for a while.
sure, okay. We will call the meeting to order. Take it away, Annie.
All right, it looks like online we have Laurie Cheryl Hartman, Jason Emery, Kyla Leonard, Melissa Fisher, Shane Stack, Violet Bummer, MCAT in 206. We have Commissioners Bureau and Strohmeyer. We have Chris Lounsbury, John Hart, Chet Krauser, and we have Juniper Davis and myself, Annie, Kathy. We have, I just draw blanks here. I'm doing this, Kaylee Becker. And we have.
I'm Ivy Anderson with the parenting place.
Ivy Anderson with the parenting place, and we have Amy McGee.
Great.
Anybody?
Excuse me, I have a lifesaver. We're going to flip-flop action items and the consent agenda, but first, do we have any public comment on items not on the agenda?
I do have a non-agenda item. Fortunately, the media has ditched us here, but Missoula County won a 2023 National Association of Counties Achievement Award. Just were notified for our COVID-19 documentation.
3 years in a row, nationally recognized.
Another award going up on the wall here soon.
Well done, Dave. And I think, yeah, you were instrumental in all 3 of these.
We all were. Yeah.
Okay, action items. Kaylee.
Yes, good morning. So this item is related to the Marshall Mountain project, as are a few different ones on the consent agenda. And I'll go over what this action item is and then explain a little bit how it corresponds to one of the items on the consent agenda. So this is for what's called the reimbursement resolution for this open space bond project. So the purpose of this resolution is to establish that the proposed project is eligible for open space bond funding and that it meets qualifications of the 2006 and 2018 open space bond. In the resolution that's attached to the agenda, it lists each purpose of the 2006 and 2018 open space bonds that this project meets. I won't list them all out. There are a number, and it describes a bit more about the project. And so Missoula County, in adopting the resolution, the reason for this is that it would allow basically expenses that are incurred and paid prior to the final project decision. If that project is approved, those expenses could be reimbursed with the open space bond funds if they are issued. I want to make it clear that this, again, is a reimbursement resolution, and that is different than an approval resolution, and that approval resolution, the decision for that would come much later in the fall. This is just a very preliminary step saying it's qualified and that it's eligible. And then associated with that, there is on the consent agenda an item for a letter of engagement with Elizabeth Erickson of Borden Thane, who's an attorney, and we would be looking to contract out some legal work related to due diligence items for the open space bond project. Is all I have. And Juniper might have a few more things to add to.
Yeah, and I'll just add some additional context for the additional item that's in the consent agenda, which is a request for the commission to endorse staff to undertake due diligence items that would help us ascertain the proposed model that's before us, where we are looking into whether the county might take a lead role in the acquisition, ownership, and management of Marshall Mountain. This endorsement would allow staff over the upcoming months to engage in those due diligence items, some of which would be conducted by Elizabeth Erickson, some of which may be reimbursed by the reimbursement resolution that Kaylee just mentioned. Others that would be done with staff time, both in partnership with the city and others. We would be looking at a number of items, environmental assessments, risk and liability, operational cost estimates. The list kind of goes on. But we would be looking at those over the next number of months, bringing them forward to the Parks and Trails Advisory Board for consideration and to you all as well for periodic updates, leading to what would be a decision before you all at a public meeting, likely in November, as to whether you want to consider the acquisition, ownership, and management of Marshall Mountain in the long term. So this would kick off essentially the due diligence phase of that potential project.
So I'm going to add just one quick thing. So reimbursement resolutions are a very common practice for Missoula County. Anytime we're taking on a large scale project, be it Fort Missoula Regional Park, the library, or any of those things, reimbursement resolutions always come to you prior to the debt issuance. For those or the use of bond funds to make sure that all of the project costs get wrapped into the funding package as one identifiable item for folks so they know the total cost of the project at the end.
Thank you.
Move that we approve the reimbursement resolution.
Did you have something that you wanted to add, John? Oh, that was just, okay. Second. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
You got a comment?
Did you already ask for public comment?
Thought I did, but
Good.
maybe I didn't.
Go forward.
Again, take two. Is there any additional public comment on this? Okay. Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. General release and settlement agreement.
Do we want to do this right now?
Can be whatever order you want.
No, we're not gonna close this. This is a case that I talked to you about before. Missoula County sued, a property owner, David Holey. He's a property owner in the Sunset West Water District, which is, up the hill above the frontage road, west of the Y. You've heard of some of this, and I know that we're pressed for time, but I want to give you the full history. This water district was created in 1973. It's an RSID. It was part of a pre-Montana Subdivision Platting Act subdivision that was platted through a, historically through a certificate of survey, the way subdivisions were done before that act was passed. Originally, it was 27 lots. It's not clear to me who originally operated the water system. I think it was probably the homeowners association or the folks who, the three gentlemen who sort of created this subdivision. Unfortunately, there were no written or platted access easements from the end of Fred Lane to the water tank for the water system. And the water tank is on top of the hill.
Is it a well or is it what?
Originally, there were a couple of wells that were also high up on the hill. And then they had their transmission lines to the water tank, and then your just distribution lines downhill to those 27 lots. Over time, they had a lot of water supply problems. Those two wells didn't produce enough water. They had some contamination issues, some things they were sorting out with DEQ. And so in the late 90s, Missoula County was again instrumental in creating another SID for this water system and drilling a new well down by Lee's Lane and George Cates Boulevard, which is now at the bottom of the hill. And that well, they pump the water and then they pump it up to the top of the hill into the water tank. And as part of that new RSID, that was a construction RSID. There were new transmission lines laid, and then there were new distribution lines laid also. Sort of bringing that system up to better capacity, because by the late 90s, there's now 44 lots that it serves. Unfortunately, there were not some of those parts of those transmission and distribution lines were constructed outside of any existing utilities. So, 1999, 2000, we have a water tank that's in a utility, but no legal access from the end of Fred Lane to that water tank. And we have parts of the main transmission and distribution lines for that water system not in delineated utility or water line easements. And Also, at this point in time, the county took over day-to-day operations. It might have happened earlier, but definitely by the time of this new system in RSID 8925, county had taken over the day-to-day operations. And everything seemed to be fine for the next 20 years until in 2019, we became aware that the inside of the water tank needed to be resurfaced and repainted to the tune of about $35,000. Spreading $35,000 out amongst 44 lot owners is a heavy lift. That was going to be a significant increased assessment for everybody. Public Works talked to you, the commissioners, about that expenditure. It was your direction to figure out a way, if possible, to lessen the financial burden that would be on this small water system. And fortuitously, around the same time, the county was approached by Centric Internet wanting to put a repeater, a 6-foot repeater tower, and associated infrastructure on top of the water tank. That was apparently an ideal location to expand their coverage and provide better internet coverage to that part of the county. And in exchange, the Centric offered free internet access to the county's RSID office, which is located in Elmar. And historically, that office had not had good internet access. And so this was an opportunity to save $140 a month for the RSID budget for all of the RSIDs in the county, not just Sunset West. And it's important for the RSID office to have good internet coverage because we have an automated system that continuously monitors the level of water in that tank and other infrastructure around the county. And so we need 24/7, 365 internet coverage in order to make sure that we're providing adequate service to the water users in our city. So that was a bonus. We save $140 a month. We get good, reliable internet access. But then they also paid a lease of $250 a month
To use the tank.
to use the tank. And the way we set that up is that every penny of that $250 goes to reduce the assessments for the 44 water users in Sunset West. And it wasn't a complete wash, but it really over time it's going to cover most of the cost of that resurfacing and repaving of that tank. So this is where I get involved. The Public Works comes to me and says, John, we have this great opportunity. And, knowing the dynamics, it sounded like a great idea. And they reminded me that we don't have legal access to the tank. And do you think that's going to be a problem, John? And, I make a mistake most every day. And usually they have no consequence. But at the time, sitting and thinking about this, I thought, well, this is a win-win-win. Everybody wins here. Okay, so we don't have legal access, but who is going to care? And it's really, I have an email. I could read it to you. I basically said, yeah, it'd be great if we had legal access. We, the county, probably have a prescriptive easement, but yeah, let's go ahead and do this lease with Centric because who's going to care? We're saving them money. Okay. That was my advice, and I own it. And we signed a 20-year lease with Centric. In May of 2021, the gentleman who owns the property on which the water tower situated somehow became aware that we had entered this lease with Centric, started writing letters to you and to me, and I was in contact with him throughout the summer. I had meetings with him. Shane Stack and I had meetings with him and his grandsons, and we tried to work out something that, I told him, I said, hey, this is a good deal for you and all your neighbors. And we were not able to work out a deal, and things deteriorated. In October of 2021, he parked a it's not a limousine, but it's a very long vehicle. I don't know where he got this, and blocked the access road to the tank.
And John, so does this gentleman use water from that tank also?
This gentleman
That
this gentleman lives down in the valley, but he owns that property, and the occupant of that lot, he actually owns 4 lots. 4 of the 44 lots are owned by this gentleman. So he was getting a deal on 4 lots, including that lot was getting water. And so, because the county has to be able to get to the water tank if it needs 24/7, 365, we had no choice but to file suit in court, ask for an injunction, and try to, at least get the vehicle moved out of there and start to get these issues sorted out with the court. And that's what we did. Eventually, Judge Deshaw did grant Missoula County a partial summary judgment saying, yes, Missoula County, you have a prescriptive right to go from the end of Fred Lane to the water tank for all reasonable purposes relating to operating the water system. And you also have prescriptive easements for the parts of the distribution and transmission line that are not wholly within other utility easements. However, the scope of our right to use that road and these distribution lines was left unsettled. But we also had, by this point in time, some counterclaims by Mr. Holy. When we sued him, we alleged that we had these rights. We had a right to honor this lease. We had a right to let Centric use the road. He counterclaimed and said, you're taking my property against the Fifth Amendment to the U.S. and state constitution. You're trespassing. You're converting my property. You're unjustly enriching Missoula County, and the various counterclaims. So now we have claims against Missoula County for money damages arising out of this deal that I blessed with Centric. And so Judge Deshaw's partial summary judgment order only addressed Missoula County's rights vis-a-vis our obligations to run the water system under the RSID statutes. And eventually I did make an argument that that Centric could use existing utility easements to park at the end of Fred Lane and walk to the water tank for the 2 or 3 times a year that they actually needed to get to the water tank. That motion at this time is pending. My argument, admittedly, was a little bit thin. And I was not confident that we would prevail, and it didn't resolve Mr. Holy's counterclaims against Missoula County. So I have worked out a settlement agreement with the Holy's attorney, whereby we have a comprehensive easement now for not only our Missoula County's rights to use the access road, has a 30-foot width. The distribution transmission lines have a 20-foot width, and then we have the right, if we ever need to go in there and replace these lines, that we have a reasonable, construction area around these. So it buttons up all of these issues that have been outstanding since the creation of this through a very comprehensive easement. And it also allows us to honor the Centric lease until 2039. At the end of that lease, it allows Centric personnel to use the access road to the water tank as they need to. And so we'll continue to get the lease payments. We'll continue to get the free internet for our RSID building, and we'll still get those benefits. In exchange for this and a release by both parties, all claims against each other, we're giving Mr. Holy $12,500, and
that addresses all the counterclaims.
that addresses all the counterclaims, and that got us everything that we needed in this to go forward with what I had advised we could do back in 2019.
So what's the basis of $12,500?
That was the minimum they would take and the maximum we would pay. There's no rhyme or reason.
Will Risk be able to, I mean, where's the?
The risk is
coming out of
No, where-
This is coming out of the risk budget. You know, because it is settling claims for money damages against Missoula County. Erica was able to justify it coming out of the risk budget.
And who were Holy's attorneys?
He had an attorney at Christian Sampson Basket, originally a gentleman named Rufus Peace, but more currently Eric Henkel, who I've enjoyed very much dealing with. And starting about holidays, I met with Eric, and it's taken a while, but we finally got here.
Quite a saga. Thank you.
Yeah, it is kind of a saga, and so again, my fault. I've done this a few times throughout my career. Sometimes I forget that I should expect the worst in people. And it gets me.
I rarely forget that.
It gets me in trouble now and then, so this was a good reminder.
Amazing, amazing.
You're welcome for the water and the internet access and the $12,500.
So it's my strong recommendation that let's see, is this one?
The general release, yeah.
Chair sign.
Oh, the chair sign.
I think all three of these sign this one.
Okay.
I don't know if
It says chair.
Chair to sign?
That's what it
Let's
says.
see, it's probably just, yeah, it's just the chair to sign, so,
Are we okay doing ready sign?
yes,
Yes.
it has to be notarized though.
So no, so I'll just have one sign as acting
Okay.
chair and I'll notarize.
Okay, I move that we authorize the acting chair to sign the general release and settlement agreement.
Second, any further discussion? Thanks, Shane, for your work on this.
I didn't do anything. Thanks, John.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Wow. All in favor? Aye.
Thanks, John. Any other good deals you have for us today?
No, I will have an excellent deal for you on Thursday afternoon.
Oh,
Excellent deal for you.
yeah, I think I might. Okay,
So,
Stay tuned.
Remember that.
Okay. Consent agenda.
On consent agenda, for
Anything?
item number 3, that is what Ivy Anderson is here for. So it's,
Well, since you're here, let's pull it out and,
Okay,
Oh.
and I hate to cut us short, but we have 3 minutes and we have a discussion item. We also have.
oh,
3
okay.
minutes.
well, what's happening?
At 10:30, we have the press conference.
Yeah,
over-
sorry,
That we
sorry.
need to get staff over to, so sorry.
No, thank you.
I apologize,
Okay.
but that's why everything from Thursday got pushed to Tuesday's admin because we needed to cancel Thursday's admin this week, and so we have a time
So
crunch
who
today.
here is needed at the press conference?
I'm needed at the press conference and you guys are needed at the press conference.
Oh,
Oh,
I thought Josh was handling.
Josh is speaking, yeah.
Oh, I didn't
But
realize.
we have like 3 minutes.
Now,
I didn't
now
think
we
we
have
had
2.5 minutes, okay.
Do you have anything to say in 10 seconds?
No, I thought. I
You're
could
here
just
for questions.
show- Yeah.
We're supportive. Well, actually, I'm speaking out of turn. I don't know. How do you feel?
No, I
today?
think so. I'll move we approve the consent agenda.
Second, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I hope you guys, it was a good story,
Thanks
right?
for coming in.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
you just sign as chair.
Okay, thank you.
Go on to discussion if you want, and then just wrap the signature.
Discussion items.
Yeah, so we're
Or
gonna go
tax.
fairly quickly. So back in
Oh.
January, on January 5th, you all approved a yearly resolution that sets elected officials hours for their offices. As part of that, this year, you included a provision that would allow elected officials to modify their hours based on different sets of circumstances. And one of those is related to the fact that we anticipated that we would have some challenges continuing to hire given the current unemployment rate in Missoula County, and that is impacting several of our offices across the county. But our clerk of district court is experiencing those pressures specifically and is wanting to modify the hours of their office for a period of time during that period and to help them manage their
Yeah.
caseload. And so I'll let Amy
Yeah.
fill you in on what the request is.
Our statutory requirements are, it's pretty big. What I would like for us to do would be able to close to the public for half a day, 1 day a week, Fridays from like 12 to 5 or 1 to 5. That would allow me and my staff to, one, catch up, and also focus on training and retaining my current staff. So I did some digging. We've lost 20 people since 2020. I have hired some, but some don't make it. The job is tough. And a lot of people, it's tougher than they expect. And so it just doesn't work out. And so it's a big job to learn. We've said multiple times, someone doesn't have a positive impact on the workload until they've been in our office for about a year. And most people, or a lot of people, aren't even making it a year. So I'd like to close to the public. That allows me to work on my queue, the electronic filing queue, and training court clerks that will help sustain our office.
So there's no prohibition to us to being closed for part of a day.
No, and as a matter of fact, this is not uncommon across the state right now. Gallatin
Yeah.
County's had to implement this for a few of their offices as well, as they faced exactly the same staffing challenges that we're facing here in Missoula County. And so that's why we included those provisions in the resolution, was the opportunity for electeds to be able to come to the commission and then request that. And so what we would do, I talked to Amy a little bit about this.
Is half a day enough?
As a
Is
city.
it closed for a whole
Do
day?
you want to be Friday?
The challenging part for Amy, and I don't want to speak on her behalf, but the challenging part is because when the judges are on the bench, they have an obligation to be there in the court. It's hard to figure out when that is. And most of the judges aren't on the bench Friday afternoons. And so that's what we thought kind of made sense as the starting place. And hopefully that will relieve enough of the pressure that it would.
But then if it's not working, you can come back and.
Absolutely. Yeah. As to say, and so what we talked about was starting at the end of June so that we would.
July 7th would
Yeah.
be like our first Friday.
And so we'd have plenty of time to get notice out to the public, make sure that we pushed it through all of our media channels and make sure that we get some coverage in the Missoulian and stuff so that we don't have folks showing up Friday afternoon attempting to either get a marriage license or file their own paperwork with the court and then end up with the door closed in essence during that time. So.
Great. Do we make it, this is not. a
No,
decision,
it's
this is-
primarily just to let you guys
Yeah.
know that we are going to exercise that. This is the first time, this is the first year we've had those provisions in our resolution, and it's the first time we're exercising those. So we thought it was important to have you all talk about that since you all adopt the resolution that allows electeds this flexibility that we've done.
What resolution is this? Set?
Yeah, so you'll remember,
What?
maybe not,
Yeah.
at July 5th, I went through this really long litany of resolutions at your January 5th meeting. I went
Yes.
through, you had to set the jail's
January
daily
5th,
rate.
yes.
You had to set you had to set the hours, you had to set the dates of your public meetings. You had to set the method of publication. There's about 8 yearly resolutions that you have to pass at your first public meeting in January. And so one of them is setting the office hours for elected officials. And so this is one of those resolutions. As one of the, you should remember every resolution I bring to you, especially the ones I'm going to bring every year. No, so yeah, this is just one of those perfunctory resolutions that you have.
We hope it works.
Yes,
Yeah.
I have a plan.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have your phone in there? That's the wildest, no, in your